if you've been doing everything you freaking can to manifest all this stuff into your life, let's talk about why the shit probably isn't coming forward. And that way you can get some forward momentum to get going and actually feel like you are making some progress. So, where a lot of times in the spiritual space, a lot of this shit gets completely just misconstrued and it becomes airy fairy. And this is where some people dismantle and try to say that manifesting is just a crock of shit. You can't do it, yada, yada, yada. In my world, it does exist. It's just that sometimes what we're trying to call in isn't the vibration in which we are at or ever will be at. And we're going to discuss today why, and with some supporting cards from the universe that have been popping out here for us. So I got one more deck to pull, and then I'm going to start reading and letting you guys know like what exactly is needed, necessary, where you're going, like what's happening. So a lot of the times you have this expectation that you thought this, God, hold on a second. You thought this thought, this thing is just like needing to get a little cloggy here. Are we sure we're doing this one today there, universe? So sometimes what you're focused on is not really something that you actually want. It's something that you think that you need because you're overcompensating for something else in your life. So sometimes the thing about manifestation that actually needs to happen is true, full transparency in terms of what the shit is going on. And that part can be real hard because you hear Susan out there that's like, I just journaled every single day and I went from sleeping on my grandma's couch to like making $11 billion. Buy my ebook. You can do it too. And then you're kind of like, nothing's happening. If anything, I just spent like fucking $500 today because my tire blew or whatever's going on, right? So then that's super discouraging, super discouraging. So yes, what the whole key is, where we're going to go today to help you actually maneuver the correct, we're going to use the word correct way, but it's the correct way for you, not the correct way in the terms of manifestation. Like ways I got these little notebook things everywhere is how I manifest. But you also have to be congruent with yourself. So first step is reflection. Okay. We're coming out of technically, we've come out of winter. We're now in spring. And it is a time of allowing yourself to reflect, allowing yourself to clear, purify the thoughts so that you then can contain and carry the perspective. So what do I mean by this? So we attach to things. We attach to things all the time. And then we try to control every outcome of the situation. For example, you can start off with all of a sudden, everything starts to line up. I'm going to use my real life. Everything starts to line up. This is back in 2024. Your husband finally decides like, okay, I'm going to go through the process. We're going to go move to Puerto Rico. I'm going to actually retire like as a fireman. And so I don't mean like he quit his job. Like he literally was going through the things because he bought back time. He had military time, yada, yada, yada. Papers show up on desk that was like from flooding and like in boxes. And I'm like, I don't know if we have this information. Well, then it kept showing up. So then in my world, in my brain, I'm like, obviously this is the universe that's like, you're going to have a freaking healing center in Puerto Rico and your life's, going to be glorious and you're going to have $11 billion. Everything's going to go fantastic. At no point does my brain consider at any point in time that that's not what's going to be happening because that's my ego. And then, of course, there's no humaning anymore because we don't even think about that part when we're trying to manifest because we're just like, obviously, it's on a gold platter. As soon as I get off of the airplane, has happened. And then it doesn't. And then it doesn't happen. So this is where you reflect upon the situations in which you think you have and the expectations that you have toward them. And sometimes we're not seeing ourselves in our highest light, in our highest form. So what I mean by that, the person that came here in Puerto Rico, May 2024, is not the same person that's going to be leaving possibly in 2026 or 2027. Not the same person. So my expectations and my mental state of manifesting myself here, I got here. But sometimes what we think of why we need to be somewhere and why that needs to happen is to attachment to a falsified belief of a past identity of yourself because you're trying to validate yourself. Let that sit. I've done this in business. I've done this in my relationship. I've done this as a mom. I do this as a human being. We overcompensate, we avoid, and we don't always want to acknowledge what is. So sometimes this happens in terms of you say one thing, but your thoughts, your beliefs, and your feelings are attached to a victimized story of the past. You have sometimes where the universe, what it's like, okay, I'll deliver you here, but what's actually going to happen, which Puerto Rico for us has turned into like more of a fulcrum of expansion, opposed to that the physical here expanding. It was ourselves and our family dynamic of all four of us, of like how we are today, the decisions that we're making today, the things that we're even doing is just fucking crazy. We didn't do a couple years ago. We wasn't even thinking of doing, but the uncomfortability of moving into the state in which I believe the universe, yes, got into alignment to come here. We're here at all the ducks, lined up in a row. But it wasn't what the brain expected. So then you could say, oh, this was the worst idea ever. This, like, I didn't get, this and this and this and this. And this didn't happen. It was a failure. Therefore, it's not manifesting. It didn't manifest. What were you actually after? Because again, manifestation is the feeling of. So if you are looking for the feeling of being in your highest light and the highest version of yourself, that doesn't necessarily mean where your brain puts it. Which is why in manifestation, we often say, don't focus on the how or the when. And because that's where we convolute it with this thing up here. And we have a biasness rather than a open subjective perspective. It's biased. It's narrow-minded. Like I remember years ago, I would go and do readings, and especially if it was for myself. And if it said anything about like, clarity in this, I immediately was like, obviously that's the group program that I am launching. Obviously I'm going to have like $11 billion come from this every fucking time. 90% of the time, it was like the clarity with myself. It was a situation with my husband or my children or a family member or whatever that then like expands you forward and causes you to literally leap and shift into another version of yourself. So through this reflection, purification, and perspective of yourself, what the universe wants you to do is enjoy the freaking ride. Stop trying to define it to an ending. You are going to constantly cycle yourself if you cannot be honest with yourselves of where you freaking are. Yes, we get to go into the future. Yes, we get to visualize ourselves being that person and feeling that person. But if it also is not congruent with the practicalness of right now, like again, another just basic example that I could throw in, if I'm calling you out, good, take it. But constantly over the years, I've heard, oh, I'm trying to have this business and it's just not growing. Okay, what do you do? I just really want to help people. Cool. That's going to go absolutely nowhere, even if you go spend $300,000 with like the topmost coach ever, because all you're going to do is fabricate an audience, fabricate something. Nothing's in alignment to yourself. You don't actually want to do any of that shit because you're not even going to go try it out on your own. You're just in the romanticization of the thought of you helping people, and that thought feels better than you working a job. Let's get honest here, okay? So if that's the case, you are not clear. It will not manifest into a business because you don't even have the idea of the business. You just have the idea of the romanticization of what it could be like to have a business in which you're probably vicariously looking through somebody else's life. So then there's other layers to this of like, if you're seeking like purpose and you're seeking and you're trying to manifest meaning in your life, you can't journal. Like that's not going to journal out. The feeling of what you believe would be the feeling of feeling purposeful, the feeling of feeling there and full. What does that mean to you? Not, I am determined. I have found my purpose today. Purpose 97% of the time is not even usually an act in what you're going to do. It's who you are when you do something. It's who you are in general as a person. So I want you to realize when you're doing this, what you're allowing yourself to do is come out of the dormancy that you've been, okay? Like you're coming out of the dormancy. Old habits die hard. You have to do something different. Like you have to do something different, okay? And you have to realize that through this process, you're going to feel like a freaking idiot. You're going to feel dumb. But what you're wanting to do is be very graceful and compassionate. I never know where to put the thing. Be graceful and compassionate through this process, okay? Grace and compassion and love. And I don't mean the cliche, oh, I love donuts. Oh, I love my daughter to the moon and back. No, love, real love. There's the depths of the soul of love. It goes beyond the fallacy of what we believe love is. I'm talking about love, compassion, allowing yourself to have full self-ownership, okay? Like, you are unfolding. You have been in a big, huge, if we want to use some words, rebirth of yourself. The life in which you have lived for basically half of say you live here 80 years and you're at 40-year mark. You have 40 more years to go. Those first 40 years are going to be very different than the last 40 years of your life. They really will. Even if somebody's not even on the spiritual journey, you could be like married to a person for 40 years. You've been probably married to like 4 different people, even though it's the same dude, 4 different people during that time because they changed so much. Like, my husband and I have been married almost 13 years and been together 16. And like, yeah, it's like being married to different people, and you've had to like ebb and flow with that. Well, if you're doing that with other people, you're going to also do that with yourself. You're not going to be the same person. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago, especially if you're into this type of work. That means that you have been into change, evolution, and shifts. Okay. So what they want you to hear through all this is enjoy the ride though. Like, you have to also have movement through this, and it shouldn't be painful, and it shouldn't also be this methodical, like, I am journaling today because every day I'm going to journal because then blah, 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 blah. I mean, obviously nobody really writes that, but if you have that mentality of like every day at 4:00, I'm going to write in my journal because I'm going to be the best version of myself. Guarantee that you're probably not going to change a bit because there's no self-accountability. It's become methodical. It's become habitual. It's not intentional. There's no freaking feelings behind it, and there's no emotion. So if you have emotion behind it and you have feeling beyond want and you actually can be in it, like, you'll actually have stuff like legit shift and change. It just will, okay? It just will. So if you are doing all this, again, from the version that you were 5 years ago, like back in 2017, you said you want to have a business, and then that's just been lingering in the back of your mind, Yet you have had zero clarity towards that. And here we are in 2026. Was something planted in you that made you believe that in order to be X, Y, and Z, it needed to be in that form and fashion? Because right now, today, you might be trying to manifest something that is not in your best interest. That is not who you are today. Is it for you to pause and go be a mom? Is it for you to pause and not have the identity to a label of a career or business owner? Is it for you to realize like, hey, it's okay to also, like, all those people that have businesses, especially if they really start to grow and expand, usually end up hiring. It's okay to work for someone. That doesn't mean you devalued yourself. What does it feel like to not have all that responsibility of taxation, marketing, lawsuits, or anything else that could come with possible business? Reinvention of the wheel because you can't always do the same damn thing every single year. What once worked doesn't always work. I can attest to that. It's not a consistent basis. You don't usually have a consistent paycheck of any sort because there's no consistency in it. It's very up in the air and it comes and goes. That's a lot of responsibility. Not everybody wants that. That's a lot of self-leadership. Not everybody has that. So you have to be able to be willing when you're focused, when you're feeling, when you're coming up and you're creating the purges and the reflections of yourself. Are you being honest with yourself though? Are you really? So there is definitely some action being asked of you. There is action. But you have to get honest. You have to be willing to see in the in-between, not just focus on the bright, shiny stuff as if that's the only stuff that's important. Take the glisten down a bit. Humble yourself a bit. Don't stay humble in the concept of, oh, I'm going to stay meek and not make big decisions. Nobody's saying that. But again, if the person that's trying to manifest this business, I'm just using that, it just come top of mind right now. The person that's trying to manifest this business right now is still doing the little violin story of, 2001, poor me, I've always done so bad. I used to tell that story on repeat of I struggled in school, yada, 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 pain, problem, struggle. But look at me now. What was my story? Well, I've kind of fucking outgrown that. And I've done a lot of stuff of succeeding in between that. So it's like not really fitting anymore. So now it's more of, I started making decisions of where was I sloppy? Where was I lazy? Where was I sitting there? Oh yeah, I had the falsified, but I worked 16 hours a day. I fucking changed the color of a logo and all that stuff. Was I marketing? Was I talking to the audience? Was I clear to the audience? No, no, and no. Did I get caught up in the freaking romanticization of the Joneses of the business industry? Sure as fuck did. So what are you having to do, again, in order to be able to manifest in the identity in which you're in the identity in which you're becoming? You have to be in alignment and congruent to the identity of the now. That's why the power of now is so imperative and so important. Again, reflect to get there, gain some perspective, and be sure to let some shit go. When you do this, you're going to start having forward momentum. You're going to start having ideas. You're going to start having clarity. You're going to start having opportunity. Do not attach to every freaking thing because you thought this thought, miraculously, it's just going to come forward. Sometimes the cause and effect to things is to amplify and to fire up the ideas, to fire up the mechanism. Sometimes making a decision towards something that's really bold that, like, oh no, I'll do that next year. And then somebody's like, you should probably do it now. No, I'll do it next year. And then you decide to do it now. So then that means that obviously if you're doing it now and everything lines up, it must be now. But was the act of you applying for that raise now catapulted you? Because in order for you to actually fill out that application and actually hit that button, change the chemistry of your consciousness. Therefore, from that moment on, how you act, how you breathe, and how you do has shifted. So it didn't mean that that was that job, but it shifted your identity so that now when you focus on what it is that you actually desire, you know that is actually something you desire opposed to something you think you should desire. And then secondly, the identity in which you're acting out of is incongruent to it. So when you go into the future of being that person, you're able to bring that forward because it's all matching. Instead of like being over here with $1, being like, yeah, let me keep spending money like I got it right now in the present moment. You're not respecting the now. You're not respecting your now at all. We have to have accountability for our actions. We have to have the utmost truth, despite how uncomfortable it might be. Because if you live airy-fairy with everything and up in the clouds and you never get really honest to ground yourself with it, like you're not going to feel this. This isn't coming. This isn't going to come. You're not going to feel like you're winning. You're not going to feel like you have this intensity and this passion and this purpose. It's going to seriously just feel very like, I don't know. Is there a card? I don't know. Let's just put this, like, it's just going to feel just kind of blah. Well, that one doesn't really feel blah, but let's go. You're going to feel very black hole-ish. Okay. Like you're just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and having to clear something and spin. That's not what you want to do. You want to have forward momentum to where, like, I guess it is more like you're coming out of the cave. Again, there's some light. There was the darkness. You went towards the light. And then boom, you're able to come out of it. But when you're coming out of it, you're honest with yourselves. Be honest with yourself, okay? And when you do that, you'll be able to actually have a better understanding because you're merging the soul with the human instead of living in the romanticization of life. You are being human in this life, not being an orb beam, not being some angelic freaking galactic being. You might be that. Yes, that's fine. Whatever these labels are and whatever these things, I don't discredit any of that shit. Like, believe me, there's some magic in the world. I don't discredit that. But we are still in the perception of ourselves, whether it's HTML code, source energy, or some mighty God in the sky. Here you see a flesh being, I guarantee, right? And so are you. So let's honor that experience. Let's realize that, like, this thing, the brain, the egoic mind, gets in the way. It misconstrues things. It holds on to stuff. Like, your identity is just thrown a kilter. Sometimes you're sitting there and you're spending days and days and days, like, basically, like, trying to fix something with the wrong tool. And realizing, like, hey, I know that you started off with that screwdriver, but now, you need a wrench or whatever. And it's just like, until you have that shift, until you do that thing, until you realize the piece that you've been looking for is sitting right there, nothing will shift. But it's time. It's time for you to shift.